So in the first video, we looked at an introduction to what JavaScript is, its history, where it's used now, and like some of the frameworks that it powers. In this video, we're going to now start looking at key concepts in JavaScript and start writing JavaScript code. So yeah, so we're actually going to do this in a very fun way, where we will build a game. Yeah. Okay, so this is the game that we'll be building. So it's a simple quiz application that has a bunch of questions, and then the user gets to pick an answer from the multiple choice, and then yeah, so I'll just go through the game. So first question, second question, I'm just picking random answers, and then yeah, so afterwards it will show them something like this. Yes. All right then. So now that we've seen what we're going to be reading, we can get started. So I assume that you already have your ID set up, and yeah, let's get started. So there are two ways in which you can write your JavaScript code. So you can do it either in a JavaScript file or in your web browser. So to write your JavaScript code in your web browser, you can simply right click or click, depending on whether you're using Mac or Windows, then go to inspect, then console. So you can do this on almost all browsers. I think on any browser, whether you're using Chrome, Firefox, Edge, anything. So you can open your console and then you should be able to write JavaScript in here. Since we're all beginners here, I'll just write the first thing that everybody who is learning how to code writes, and that is hello world. So you can just close that. Voila, that is our first JavaScript code that we've written, and it's as easy as that. So you can do a lot of things using your console, but it's not very practical. It is practical for debugging and whatnot, but not really for writing an actual application. So what we're going to be using is Visual Studio Code for this tutorial. So I'll just proceed to opening up the folder that we're going to place all our code in. So this is not an HTML CSS tutorial, but yeah, so we're going to, since JavaScript just adds interactivity to your HTML and CSS, we'll start with this HTML file that has that's pre-populated with HTML and CSS code. So just have a look at what this is looking like currently without the JavaScript. So this is what's here. Remember, the aim is for it to be like this, where we have, it shows questions, user can select answers, then they can see their score there. So currently we just have this statement that says questions will appear here. So yeah, so let's get to it. Okay, so proceeding with the game. So yeah, so our current state of the game is this, and then remember the aim is to have list of questions and end up with this. So we need to do a bit of planning first of all, and so we'll just go straight into adding the script tag. So this is a way in which we can add our JavaScript code. So if you're adding JavaScript to an HTML file, this is how you do it. So you just add a script tag, and then you can write the JavaScript code in between the opening and closing script tags, which is what we're going to do. So assuming that we are all beginners, yeah, so what we need, first of all, we can just start writing code. We need a way of planning what we're going to do, like breaking down the task into simple steps and then building on those simple steps. So the steps that we have are now. So this is a way of adding comments. Comments are useful for Yeah, a comment is basically code that's not going to run. So you can add whatever you're going to add here. It's not going to be executed by the browser. It's not going to do anything on the other side as long as you add this slash slash, or if you're writing multiple lines, you can do that. And everything that's going to be in between there is going to be a comment, and that's not going to be executed. Okay, so what is the aim? What are we trying to do here? So we're trying to load questions first of all. So when the game loads up, the user has to, going back to this, so we're supposed to display questions here. Then after we display questions, we're supposed to track, that's step 2, track user answers. And then step 3 is just display user score. Okay, so, and this is how we're going to handle the basics that we're actually going to learn here. Okay, so step 1, loading questions. So now, how do we load the questions? How do we know which question to display? Is it question 1, question 2, question 3? And how do we know what's the answer for that particular question? Okay. Okay, so in order to implement step 1, we have to take a step back and look at something known as variable and data types. Okay, so to look at this, I will go back to the console and we'll just go back to the program that we wrote, which is console.log, and our little message of hello world. Okay. Okay, so we've written that hello world of ours, but we can also write it in a different way. We can say, we can make it a little bit more dynamic, or we say let message be equal to, then we put our hello world there, hello world, and then we'll console.log. Instead of adding the hello world inside, we'll just say message, and it still gives us the same result, which is hello world and hello world. So back to Visual Studio. So a variable is basically a box. It's a box that stores a value. So in this situation, the box is, we give our box a name, and the name of the box is message, but the value in the box is hello world. And so when we are trying to call that box of ours, it will return the value that it has. So yeah, so I think we'll just continue in Visual Studio. So again, doing the same thing here. So just say let message be equal to, then again the same thing, hello world, and then console.log message. If I save this, go back and just reload this page, we have that hello world. So this is coming from this. Okay, so instead of hard coding the message hello world in there, we are putting it in a box, and then the box's name is message, the value in the box is hello world. So this is one way of declaring a variable. The other way of declaring a variable is using the keyword const. So instead of having let, we're having const. I'll just explain the difference in a bit. I'll just say message, let's say second message will just be welcome to JavaScript. And if we do the same thing, we say console.log and we display second message and save that. If we go back, reload the page, we have two things there. The first one is hello world, the second one is welcome to JavaScript. So we can see First one is there, then the second one is that. Now, what's the difference between let and const? So let is used when we have a box and we've put a value in the box, but we would like to change the value at some point. So if I say initially the message is hello world, and then I would like to change it at some point, I can just say, and I'll just say changed message. Okay, so we have reassigned. We've given this box called message a different value. The initial value was hello world. Okay, the new value is changed message. Okay, and const. Const is used in a situation where we we won't be changing the value that we've placed in the box. So when you use const, it means the value that we've added cannot be changed. Okay, so it will just remain like that. A more practical example would be, so I'll delete this. A more practical example would be, so if I say let age be equal to, I'll say 12. Okay, age can change. Each year the age of the person will change. Then I'll say const person name will be equal to John Doe. Okay, so the name of a person remains a constant, the age of the person will be changing. So in situations like this, where we have the name of the person and we know we won't be changing the name, we'll use const. In a situation where it's a value that we would like to be changing, we can say let. Okay, so yeah, so that's the basic introduction to just variables. Think of them as a box, and you give a name to this box, and then when creating this box, you can either use let, then the name of the box that you're going to create, and the value that you're specifying. Or if you would like to specify the value later, you can just say let age. Sorry, I've got two ages there, like that. So in this case, we have a box that has no value. Okay, it has no value. And we can give it a value at some point. Just say 30, something like that. Okay, so yeah, so that's how you declare a variable. So moving on to the other part, data types. So we said a variable is a box that stores a value. Now, the kind of value that we're storing in the box is what you call a data type. So a box can store a number, a string like this. So a number like that, a string like that. It can store a now, it can store a float. A float is just a number with a decimal point. So if you say, it's just showing you this. So if I hover over this, sorry, let me add the value there. Okay. And if I hover over this, you can see that we're storing a number. Okay. So if I change this to something like this and just check again, we're now storing a string because when we were creating our variable, we're giving it that. Okay, so that's just a simple introduction to variables and data types. A variable is a box that we where we store a value. Then the data type is the kind of value that we're storing in a box. Is it a number? Is it a string? Is it a float? Is it a boolean? So a boolean is just a true or false. So if I say let is active be equal to true, then if I just want to check what's there, so you can see is active equal to true, it's a boolean. Okay, so yeah, so those are the key data types that you most likely be using. These are what are known as primitive data types, because you build on this one, you build on the primitive data type to make more advanced data types. But this is a basic introduction to the primitive ones, which are your strings, your numbers, your booleans, your floats, and your doubles. In other programming languages, basically in almost all programming languages, these are the ones that are your primitive data types, and then you build on the primitive ones to make more advanced ones as we do the same, progressing in this game. So that's a basic introduction to variables and data types, and how now we'll proceed to how we can make use of those things. So we will proceed to making use of variables in our game. So the variables that we need are, we need a variable to track which question number we're supposed to show the user. So is it question number 1, question number 2, question number 3? So just say, I will name this current question number, okay, 1. And then we need to have the score. So when the game starts, the user starts with a score of 0. Okay, so now this is where it gets interesting. We need to have a list of questions. So a single question will be like this. Just a sample question. Does HTML stand for? And we need a list of these questions. So now, earlier I said these are primitive data types where you have a string like this. By the way, I didn't mention that a string is just anything that you have in between two quotes. So either double or single, that's your string. And we need a list of this. We need a list of strings. So there's a nice way of doing this in JavaScript where you can create a variable as a box, so you can have a list of boxes. Okay, and then you can refer to the list the same way we were referring to one box. Now we can just refer to the list of boxes and then give it a name. So we're going to have our list will be questions. Okay, and then it's going to have something like this. Okay, and then we can then have the actual questions. So they'll be separated like that. Okay, so that will be question 1, question 2, and question 3. Okay, so I have gone ahead and just added the questions already. So these are the questions that we're going to be dealing with. And then now what we need to do is, so I'll just first of all remove this. Okay, so to have just this list of questions. So now what we need is this. We need to have, we already have a list of questions, okay, which is what we have up there. But each question has to have a list of choices. So these are the possible answers that the user can pick. And then we also need to track correct choice for each question. Okay, so the most efficient way of doing this is creating some sort of way, some sort of object that stores the question, the possible answers, and the correct answer. Okay, so you can do this using we'll just do this first of all, and then we will bundle everything together. So if we say question 1 data is something like this. So if we say the actual question, okay, which will be a list, sorry, which will be that, and then answers, okay, which will be a list. So say option 1, option 2, and delete that, option 3, and then we will have correct answer. Okay, so what we've done with this is this. We have created this object, okay, that stores 3 things. It stores a string, which will be the actual question. Then it stores a list. So this is a list of strings, which will be possible answers. And then we're going to store the correct answer. Okay, I don't know if that makes sense, but this is what we'll do. So we will get this. I'll just cut it from there and then put it in there. So instead of having the question there, we will remove this and put it there. And then we'll just repeat this same thing. So I'll say this, remove that. Okay, so we just need this for the 3 questions, which is that, comma, and that. So I will cut this from here and put it there. Then cut the last question from there and put it there. Okay, so what do we have now? So what we have is we have a list of objects. This is still a list of, instead of having a single box storing a string, we now have a list of boxes storing boxes. Okay, so what it has now is the first box will be a question, then the possible answers. So these are the multiple choice answers that we're going to display, and the actual correct answer. So the correct answer will be, we'll give it a number. So this number will depend on where this thing is. Okay, so for each of these lists that we have, the counting starts with 0. So if you want to refer to the first item in that, will be 0. So if we're going to refer to the second answer there, it will be 1. And then if you want to refer to the last answer there, it will be 2. Okay, that also applies to this same object of questions. Meaning, if we're going to refer to the first question, it will be questions 0. So 0 will be this one. So this is 0, then this will be 1, and then that will be 2. So I just go ahead and add the possible answers for each question, and then we'll proceed. Okay, so answers have been added. So these are the possible answers. These are the multiple choice answers that we're going to display to the user. So we just need to track what's the correct answer. So for question number 1, correct answer is at point 0, like I said. So this is 0. That's how we refer to it. This will be 0, then that's 1, and that will be 2. So correct answer here will be 1, and correct answer there will be 2. So now moving on to actual step 1. First of all, before we move on to actual step 1, let's just rename this to quiz data, because it makes more sense now, because this is not just questions but a list. So this denotes list, then this would denote objects. So this is now a list of objects. Okay, and then each object is made up of question, answers, and the correct answer. Okay, so moving on to actual step 1. So actual step 1 is to load the questions. Now, why is this our first step? Because when we go back to our game just says question will appear here. So we need to display the actual questions there. So to display the actual question there, now we have to go back and then look at something known as DOM. So DOM. So DOM stands for Document Object Model. Okay. So document object model. So think of this page as a document, okay? And then think of your HTML page as a document, and then the document has got different elements, okay? So JavaScript gives you this thing known as a DOM that allows you to change the content, the styling, and whatnot, to dynamically change it using your JavaScript. So this is what we have in our HTML body, and then all of these things have an ID linked to them. And then using the DOM, we should be able to grab any of these, add content to it, remove content, add styling, remove styling, and whatnot. So a DOM is just, think of the DOM as a way in which you can modify things. Okay, so to load our questions, we are going to grab this. So there's this thing, which is a question, okay? And then we can just grab it in our JavaScript. By grabbing, what I mean is this. We're going to declare a variable, and the variable is going to be our question element, like that. And then how do we grab it? So I said JavaScript gives you a DOM, and then the DOM is just that document, and then it has certain ways in which you can get anything. Okay, so, and it's very straightforward. It actually says get element by ID. So what this allows you to do is to get this thing, this line, and store it as a variable. and then you can change things to it. So in our case, we want to display the questions in there. So instead of displaying this, we want to display our questions. Okay. So that's the ID that we have there. So we can just grab it. So you say get element by ID, and we have that questions element. So to just make something, just for the sake of showing you that we've grabbed it, we can just change something there. So I'll just say changed the text. Okay. So if I go back, it says questions will appear here. If I refresh, it says changed the text. What have we done? We have grabbed that particular element using the DOM, so the document, and then this document has got ways in which you can get these things. So you can get by ID, you can also do other things like you can get by a class name, by class, by tag name, whatnot. But in our case, we just want to get by the ID. Okay. So so we've grabbed that. Now we need to display our actual questions instead of saying changed the text. Okay. To display the question, we need to know what question number. So let me just move these variables a bit down there. Okay, so to display the question, we need to know the question number. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to declare another variable, which will just be something that we can change. And then we'll just say current question. Now, the current question will be equal to, we're getting this data from the quiz data, and we're going to get the current question number. Now, why are we doing this? So the other way of doing this is, let me just show you. So I'll just comment that out. I'll put that there. So we want to be doing 0, which will be this first object. Then if we say we want to do 1, it means it will be the second object. Okay. And then if you want to do the third object, we just do 2. Okay. So, but instead of doing it statically like this, saying 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, we will use the variable that we declared up there. All right. Which we would have to change to 0 so that we start with the first question. Now, this to just say current question data. Why have I changed it to current question data? It's because, as you can see, when I hover over it, it's the object and not the actual question. So now, how do we get the actual question? The actual question, we can get it by, we just console.log, and then I'll show you. So if you say current question data dot, for the first stop there, we have access to these items. So these are the things that we've declared in our object. So if I say question, this will give us the first question. Okay. So what have we done? We've done this. We've said current question data is our quiz data. Then since that's a list, we're getting the item at point 0. Where are we getting the 0? The 0 is from here. Okay, so quiz data at 0, which is quiz data is this, at 0 will be that. But we don't want this whole thing, we just want the question. So what do? We say dot question. So that's how you get access to the actual question element, okay, from the quiz data. So we say let current question data will be quiz data current question number, and then the question is that. So if I save this, I go back to our game, just refresh, then let's go back to our console. We will see that question, okay? What does HTML stand for? Which will correspond to our first question. Okay, so if I change this to, let's say, 1, then save, it should show us this because that's at point 1. That's the object at point 1. So quiz data at point 1, then the question at that point. So if I go back, I refresh, we'll see that. Okay, hopefully this is all clear. But Still more, we still have not done what we wanted to do. We want to display the question. So I'll cut this from there and put it there. Let's remove the console. It's not necessary. I'll just remove this and then that, then that as well. So what do we want to do? We just want to display that question. Okay, so this will be the first part of our game. So if I go back to the game and refresh, we'll see that we're actually getting the question, which language is used for styling web pages. Okay, so we have successfully completed the first part of this game of ours, which is just to have a quiz data variable which stores a list of objects, and then the objects have questions, answers, and then marking the correct answer. Then apart from that, we've got these variables. So we've got a variable that tracks the current question number, the variable that tracks that will be tracking the user score. And then apart from that, we have managed to get the element. So that's the HTML tag that's for displaying the question. We've also managed to create a variable that will have the current question data. So that's the current question that we're looking at with its question, answers, and then correct answer. And then we've managed to actually just load the first question. So in the next video, we are going to proceed further and then begin to add more things here. So just add the multiple choice questions there and then allow the user to choose one of the questions and then proceed from there. So thanks for watching. Look out for the next video.